Ava Simmons didn't walk into her wedding searching for magic. She walked in grateful she even made it to that altar. The girl who once scraped by in silence finally felt chosen, steady, safe. And on the night she said, "I do," she had every reason to believe forever was waiting on the other side of those vows. Instead, forever ended at the edge of a 60-foot bridge, where her dress surfaced at dawn like a goodbye she never had the chance to give. Before we go any further, before we retrace the moments between the ceremony and the water, let me know where you're watching from and make sure you're subscribed to Crime Deck. Stories like this matter. Your support helps us bring truth to the victims who can no longer speak for themselves. Now, let's go back to the night love turned into something no one at that wedding was prepared to face. August 14th, 2021, 2:12 a.m. The night is humid. The moon low, and the river beneath the Oak Ridge Bridge shifts like a sheet of black glass, silent, cold, ready to keep whatever truth sinks into it. A lone wedding dress drifts near the bank, its lace tangled around a fallen branch, moving just enough to remind officers it belonged to someone who didn't leave this water on her own. Flashing police lights paint the steel beams above in red and blue as deputies from the Franklin County Sheriff's Office sweep the shoreline with tight voices and tired eyes. And at the far end of the bridge, wrapped in a gray emergency blanket, sits Noah Carter. 27 years old, newly married for exactly 10 hours, face buried in his hands, shoulders trembling. The picture of heartbreak. To the world watching him, Noah looks like a man whose life shattered in a single misstep, a grieving groom retelling the same story through choked breaths. She slipped. She lost her footing. I reached for her. He makes sure every word sounds like pain instead of guilt. But the camera doesn't buy it. His tears fall on cue. His answers sound memorized. And when Detective Marla Jensen asks him to walk them through the final moments again, Noah's jaw tightens just enough to break the illusion he's trying so hard to hold together. Still, no one confronts him. Not yet. He's the pastor's son, the hometown sweetheart, the man raised under Sunday sermons and community respect. Around him, whispers say a tragedy like this deserves gentleness first and investigation second. And Noah leans into every bit of that sympathy. But sympathy doesn't dim the beam of a deputy's flashlight. 2:29 a.m. Across the rocks below, a young officer stops, kneels, and calls out for the detective. Wedged between two stones is a phone, cracked, soaked, but not dead. When the screen flickers awake, even for a second, it reveals the last notification Noah received before Ava went into that water. A message stamped 11:47 p.m., barely an hour after the reception ended. A blurred image, a file, a name Ava prayed would never resurface. And in that moment, the portrait of a grieving husband doesn't look so devoted anymore. Something here is wrong. Something here is staged. And whatever Noah Carter is hiding didn't drown with his wife. It takes only one more breath, one more look at that flickering screen for investigators to finally understand. This was never an accident at all. Long before Noah Carter stood on that bridge, he lived in a world that shaped him into the kind of man who would break before he ever allowed himself to bend. November 3rd, 1994, 6:42 a.m. In a quiet Alabama town where church bells carried louder than morning traffic, Noah was born into a family where image wasn't just important. It was gospel. His father, Pastor Gregory Carter, was the kind of man people quoted at potlucks and looked to during storms. His reputation was spotless, his sermons sharp, and his expectations sharper. Inside the Carter home, perfection wasn't encouraged, it was demanded. Noah, the middle child, became the vessel for those demands. Growing up, Noah learned early that affection in the Carter household was tied to performance. His father praised him only when he succeeded. A memorized verse, a flawless football game, a handshake deemed strong enough for a Christian man. When he faltered, the warmth vanished. His mother offered gentler correction, but even she measured pride through Gregory's eyes. Noah internalized the message so deeply that the idea of disappointing his family felt like a sin. By 2006, Noah was 12, and already the embodiment of a church boy. He led youth prayers, played drums on Thursdays, and stood beside his father during altar calls like a miniature ambassador of purity. Every adult around him reinforced the same narrative. He was special, chosen, called to a higher standard. Noah absorbed those compliments like sunlight, but not with humility, with hunger. Praise became oxygen. Silence felt like suffocation. He learned to adjust himself depending on who was watching, folding into whatever version of goodness people needed him to be. Outside the church walls, however, cracks began showing. Teachers noted that Noah was bright but overly sensitive to correction. A simple note on a missed homework assignment could send him into a quiet withdrawal. If a classmate outperformed him, Noah either distanced himself or overcompensated so dramatically that it made others uncomfortable. He didn't lash out physically. He imploded. He carried failure like a bruise he couldn't let anyone touch. By high school, Noah had perfected the skill of emotional masking. August 2010, at 16, he became the student who shook every parent's hand on open house nights, the boy who held doors, who spoke softly, who teachers trusted with responsibilities no teenager should have. But beneath that calm exterior lived a young man who needed control to feel safe. If a friend didn't answer quickly enough, Noah assumed offense. If a teacher critiqued an essay, he felt personally attacked. He hid those insecurities under charm, burying them so deeply that even his closest friends only saw the version he curated. Romantic relationships in high school never lasted long. Not because girls didn't like him, they did. But Noah's ideal of a partner was shaped by purity culture teachings and the fear of judgment. He wanted someone who made him look good, someone worthy, someone who aligned with the image he carried like armor. Whenever a girl didn't fit that mold, a rumor about a past boyfriend, a photo he didn't approve of, Noah quietly pulled away, convinced she would tarnish the facade he spent years polishing. In college, the pattern sharpened. September 2013, freshman year at Auburn University, Noah entered campus with a Bible tucked under his arm and a polished smile that made him instantly memorable. He joined campus ministry, became a worship assistant, and quickly became the young man parents hoped their daughters would date. His social media painted him as respectable, responsible, spiritually grounded. Every caption was curated, every photo intentional. But Noah's need for admiration grew into something more intense. College counselors later said he carried a performance identity, a psychological shield built on being exactly who people expected him to be. Any deviation from that image made him feel exposed, unsafe. He never admitted these fears aloud. He didn't have to. They controlled him from the inside. His interactions with women during this period followed a predictable pattern. Noah gravitated toward girls he considered safe, those without visible edges. He avoided parties where reputations were messy, avoided women whose social lives he couldn't control. He chose partners who made him feel righteous. And when those relationships ended, he always left with the same explanation. It wasn't aligned with God's plan. The truth was simpler. If he couldn't shape them into his version of perfection, he withdrew. By 2017, Noah had become what many in the community called a catch. Clean-cut, well-spoken, respectable. But inside him lived a fragile ego built on conditional acceptance. He feared humiliation more than heartbreak. He feared judgment more than loneliness. He feared exposure more than sin. And behind every polished smile, he carried the weight of a reputation he couldn't afford to crack. This worldview followed him everywhere, into friendships, relationships, church leadership roles. He measured himself constantly. Did he look righteous enough, strong enough, pure enough? Every misstep felt catastrophic. Every whisper of criticism became a threat. And when he felt threatened, he hid it with even more charm, more obedience, more performance. People called him humble, but humility was the costume he wore to survive. Noah didn't grow into a man who valued character. He grew into a man who valued perception, not truth, not honesty, not flaw, just the illusion of flawlessness. So when a woman finally came into his life who seemed to complete that illusion, soft-spoken, modest, gentle, he clung to her. Not because she was Ava, but because she was everything he needed the world to believe he deserved. And once a man like Noah anchors his identity in a spotless image, anything that threatens that image becomes dangerous. Not because it's wrong, but because it exposes the truth he spent his whole life hiding. Ava Simmons never grew up believing she'd become anyone's fairy tale bride. May 12, 1996, 4:18 p.m., in a worn-down apartment on the south side of Birmingham, her mother wrapped her in a thin blanket and whispered a promise she could never keep: that life would get easier. It didn't. By the time Ava turned 7, her mother was packing a small suitcase and leaving a note filled with apologies. Ava was too young to understand. 2 months later, her father vanished without a trace. No explanations, no calls, just a void that lingered in every birthday and every quiet dinner she ate alone. Yet even in the absence of a real family, Ava grew into a gentle soul. She found small pockets of tenderness in school counselors who noticed her frayed backpack, neighbors who handed her leftover meals, and teachers who praised her handwriting as if it were a lifeline. These little kindnesses helped her survive, but they couldn't shield her from the instability waiting for her once she aged out of youth programs. December 2014, at just 18 years old, Ava was suddenly on her own with no blueprint and no safety net. Her first apartment smelled of dust and old carpet, the kind of place where the walls were too thin and the nights too long. She worked 2 part-time jobs, a diner by day, a delivery service at dusk, but the numbers never added up. Rent climbed. Bills piled up like reminders of the childhood she never escaped. Ava wasn't irresponsible. She wasn't careless. She was a teenager trying to stay afloat in an adult world that didn't care who she was or what she'd already survived. When the landlord taped a final notice on her door in February 2015, Ava made a decision she never thought she'd even consider. The strip club outside the county line didn't ask for resumes, experience, or stability. They just asked for courage, a manufactured kind she had to force into existence. The neon lights in that building cast false confidence on her trembling skin. Every night, Ava told herself, it was temporary. Every shift felt like a negotiation with dignity and survival. 9 months. 9 months of forced smiles, shaking hands, and cold dressing rooms where she wiped glitter from her cheeks and tried not to cry. But Ava never lost herself. She paid off her debts, she saved every dollar, and on October 22, 2015, she walked out for the last time. No goodbye, no final look back. Just a girl determined to bury a chapter she hoped no one would ever unearth again. College became her second life. She enrolled at a community college, often finishing her homework in laundromats or library corners where no one knew her past. She majored in communications, not because she dreamed of it, but because it felt stable, predictable even. She worked after classes, took summer courses, and lined her notebooks with inspirational quotes she wasn't sure she believed yet. Slowly, the fear that had lived inside her chest began to loosen its grip. Ava learned to practice caution in ways most students never had to think about. She avoided parties. She picked up extra shifts instead of going out. She dressed modestly, not out of shame, but out of a deep desire to feel invisible, safe. Her trauma wasn't loud. It lived quietly in her choices, her posture, her soft voice that rarely demanded anything from the world. She became the type of woman people trusted instantly because she carried no arrogance. Only humility and an earnest desire to do better tomorrow than she did today. By 2018, Ava had transformed herself. Her classmates saw a dedicated young woman with a calming presence, not a survivor of desperation. Her professors admired her discipline. Her coworkers described her as warm and grounded, someone who instinctively checked whether others needed help before worrying about her own needs. She built a reputation based on kindness. Not charm, not manipulation, not attention-seeking, just pure, steady goodness. But healing isn't linear. Trauma doesn't leave completely. It waits in quiet corners. Ava still avoided mirrors on certain mornings. She still flinched when someone asked too much about her past. She still feared that one wrong confession could unravel the new life she crafted with such delicate precision. That fear made her cautious in love. She turned down dates, ignoring invitations, because the thought of someone knowing her fully made her chest tighten with dread. Ava didn't want fantasy. She wanted stability. She wanted a partner who would choose her for who she was now, not judge her for who she had been. She hoped that one day she could build a family that didn't look like the one that abandoned her. A home where children felt wanted, safe, and loved. These dreams weren't extravagant. They were stitched from the same longing she carried since she was 7, and left with more questions than answers. And when she finally met Noah Carter, she thought her prayers had been answered. He was polite, patient, gentle in a way that made her believe she could breathe again. She didn't see the pressure he carried from his upbringing. She didn't recognize the way his compliments were shaped by expectation, not understanding. Ava saw hope. She saw stability. She saw a future where she could finally stop running from the shadows of her past. But pasts don't disappear. They wait. And Ava's waited long enough to follow her into a marriage she believed was built on love. As this chapter of her life closes, I want to ask you something real. Something only you can answer. If you had a past you deeply regretted, would you trust the person you loved with it? Or would you hide it to protect yourself? Before we continue, take a moment to like, subscribe, share, and comment your thoughts. Your support helps us bring stories like Ava's to light here on Crime Deck. Their first meeting looked like the kind of moment a woman writes in a journal years later when she's trying to remember the exact second her life shifted. September 18, 2018, 3:06 p.m. Inside the campus cafe where students crowded around outlets and half-done assignments, Ava Simmons dropped a stack of textbooks at her feet. Pages scattered, pens rolled under tables, and she knelt down with an apologetic laugh that barely rose above a whisper. Before she could gather her thoughts, a pair of polished shoes stopped in front of her. Noah Carter crouched down, picking up her books with the kind of gentle smile that made everything around them pause. His shirt was neatly pressed, his hair trimmed with Sunday morning precision, and even the way he said her name, asking twice, as if he wanted to memorize it, carried a warmth Ava wasn't used to. She thanked him, flustered, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. He didn't flirt. He didn't push. He just looked at her, as if she were someone worth noticing. For a girl who had spent years trying not to be seen, Noah felt like a small miracle. Their second meeting happened by coincidence, though it didn't feel accidental to her. September 22, 2018, 11:14 a.m. Noah approached her outside a lecture hall, asking if she remembered him. Ava smiled shyly, unsure why someone like him would try so hard for a second conversation. He asked where she was headed, walked beside her, matched her pace. He didn't ask invasive questions. He didn't press about her past. He asked about her classes, her favorite music, the kind of things that made her feel normal. She left that conversation with her heart fluttering in a way she hadn't felt in years. Noah's attention became a gentle tide, steady, warm, impossible to resist. Within days, he texted every morning before she even opened her eyes, sending messages like, "Good morning, beautiful. I hope today is kind to you." At night, he sent verses or soft reminders that she deserved good things. Ava read them with a sense of disbelief. She wasn't accustomed to softness that didn't demand something in return. Noah's consistency felt like protection. But consistency wasn't all Noah offered. It was intensity. He moved toward her with a speed that made her feel chosen. He wanted to know her schedule, wanted to walk her home, wanted to carry her backpack, even though she insisted she could manage. Ava interpreted it as care, the kind she'd never experienced from anyone in her childhood. She felt safe around him, and for the first time, she allowed herself to hope that this could be real. Within 3 weeks, Noah said he wanted her to meet his family, an invitation that stunned her. October 9, 2018, she stepped into the Carter family's living room, feeling underdressed in her modest blouse, while their home radiated polished, Southern charm. Pastor Gregory Carter greeted her with a handshake firm enough to feel like an evaluation. His wife offered a polite smile that never fully reached her eyes. Their approval mattered more to Noah than Ava realized, and when his mother called her a blessing, Ava felt a rush of relief so strong she could barely breathe. She didn't notice how carefully Noah watched their reactions. She didn't catch the way he straightened his posture each time she spoke, listening as if assessing whether she fit the life he imagined. She only saw acceptance, something she'd craved for too long. Their relationship accelerated from there. Noah made every date feel intentional. October 17, 2018, 7:42 p.m., a candlelit dinner at a quiet restaurant where he told her he thanked God for meeting her. October 29, 2018, 10:11 p.m. A long drive outside the city where he played soft worship songs and talked about the future in a way that made her heart tremble with hope. Ava wasn't used to being adored, and Noah's devotion felt like validation, like proof she wasn't broken after all. He praised her modesty, her kindness, her purity. Each compliment landed like a soothing balm over old wounds she rarely spoke of. She didn't hear the undertone in his voice, the way he used those words to mold her, to confirm she fit the image he needed. She just heard love. Ava began adjusting to him without realizing it. She chose dresses he preferred. She softened her voice to avoid disappointing him. She apologized quickly, even when she didn't know what she had done wrong. And Noah rewarded her with affection that felt like sunlight, warm when she complied, cold when she didn't. Still, she didn't question it. She saw in Noah everything she believed a good man should be: stable, attentive, faith-driven. She'd spent her whole life longing for someone who wouldn't leave, and Noah seemed incapable of abandoning anyone. He held her hand during church services. He introduced her to friends with pride. He prayed with her in parking lots when her nerves got the best of her. In every way that mattered, he felt like home. But Noah had a pattern she couldn't see, one she was too hopeful to notice. He spoke often about loyalty, about clean slates, about the importance of honesty. Whenever conversations touched on past relationships, he made comments that stung more deeply than he realized. "I can't stand when people pretend to be something they're not. Some women carry baggage that ruins everything. Any relationship built on secrets is already broken." Ava laughed these comments away, telling herself he wasn't talking about her. Couldn't be. She had rebuilt herself from ashes. She had become the kind of woman Noah said he prayed for. His affirmations felt like absolution, and she clung to them like a life preserver. The shift didn't happen overnight. It crept in quietly, almost tenderly, in ways Ava mistook for care. January 14, 2019, 8:52 a.m., a cold morning on campus. Noah complimented her dress before gently tugging the neckline higher with 2 fingers. He laughed it off, calling it just a little adjustment. But Ava felt the message settle heavy in her stomach. It was the first time she sensed something beneath his kindness, something sharp, something watchful. Still, she told herself it was nothing. He loved her. He wanted the best for her. That was what partners did, wasn't it? After their engagement, Noah's charm began to tighten in ways she didn't fully understand. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Instead, he wrapped his opinions in religious language, using protection as the shield for his control. "Babe, you don't need to dress like the world," he'd say softly. Or, "I just want you to keep yourself sacred." Ava listened, trying to align herself with the expectations of a man whose approval felt like the foundation of her new life. She changed shirts, changed jeans, changed the way she carried herself. Not because she wanted to, but because she feared disappointing a man who seemed so sure of what a godly wife should be. By March 2019, Noah expanded his influence beyond her wardrobe. He questioned her coworkers, particularly the ones he labeled as too secular. When she mentioned grabbing lunch with 2 colleagues after class, Noah fell silent long enough for Ava to sense something breaking between them. "I don't want their habits rubbing off on you," he eventually said, his tone controlled, calm, almost pastoral. "We're building something sacred. Guard your circle." Those words stuck to her ribs. Guard your circle. She replayed them in her mind until the guilt washed over her and she canceled plans she had looked forward to all week. Noah's approval returned instantly, like a light switching back on. Ava mistook the relief for love. And then there was her friend, Elise. Kind, warm, someone Ava trusted. They met during a communications class and grew close quickly, sharing notes, coffee breaks, stories about stress. Elise became the kind of friend Ava hadn't had in years. When Noah noticed their closeness, his smile dimmed just slightly. He didn't forbid the friendship. He didn't need to. Instead, he shifted emotionally. Shorter replies, cool distance, a lingering disappointment Ava could feel long before he said a word. The next week, Ava apologized for spending too much time with someone else. She didn't know why she was apologizing, only that her apology made Noah warm again. He hugged her tightly, kissed her forehead, and said, "I just want you focused on us." That moment taught Ava a lesson she never put into words. his love came in exchange for her compliance. Still, in public, Noah remained flawless. April 7, 2019, 10:15 a.m., they walked into Sunday service hand in hand, drawing smiles from the congregation. The Carters were admired, respected, treated like a model family. Ava and Noah were celebrated as the example of young, Christian love done right. They volunteered for charity events, stood beside Pastor Gregory during announcements, took photos for the church bulletin. To everyone watching, they were the perfect couple. The answered prayer, the dream pairing of devotion and purity. Privately, Ava felt a pressure she couldn't name. Noah's mother made comments that stung more than she intended. "I'm glad my son chose a woman who knows how to carry herself. We believe in clean family lines, no unnecessary surprises. Honor the Carter legacy, dear. It's sacred." Each remark tightened something inside Ava's chest. She nodded, smiled, tried to reassure herself that they loved her, but she could never shake the feeling that she was performing a role she hadn't rehearsed well enough. Ava wasn't pretending to be kind or faithful. Those were the truest parts of her. But she was pretending she had nothing in her life worth hiding. And the weight of that secret pressed harder as the wedding neared. Every time Noah praised her innocence, Ava felt both loved and frightened. She wondered if he would still look at her the same way if he knew what she had once done to keep a roof over her head. She wondered how he would react if he saw her as a woman who had been desperate, not pure. She wondered if the acceptance she clung to could survive the truth she carried like a scar. June 18, 2019, 9:27 p.m. While reviewing wedding plans together, Ava mentioned a simple disagreement with her professor earlier that day. She laughed while telling the story, trying to lighten the mood. Noah didn't laugh. "You should be careful how you talk to people," he said quietly. "A wife reflects her husband." Ava apologized instinctively, even though she'd done nothing wrong. She watched his expression soften at her apology and felt her heart sink. The pattern felt familiar now. His love brightened when she bent herself into smaller shapes. By July, Ava found herself analyzing every word she spoke, every outfit she wore, every plan she made. She told herself she was becoming a better partner, but deep down she knew she was shrinking. Her voice softened. Her laugh grew quieter. She stopped sharing her thoughts freely, afraid they might be the wrong ones. She felt watched, even when Noah wasn't in the room. By early August, Noah Carter's world no longer felt like a celebration leading toward marriage. It felt like a stage he was terrified of stepping onto. Everywhere he turned, someone was praising the upcoming union. At church, older women squeezed his hands and called him blessed. His father publicly thanked God for the purity of this match. His mother kept reminding him that the Carter name was a light in the community, and nothing could dim it. But Noah wasn't feeling blessed. He was feeling cornered. He had proposed to Ava months earlier, in a moment that looked tender from the outside. A neatly planned evening, a soft smile, a Bible verse about love, and a ring box he opened with practiced ease. Ava cried, believing she had finally found someone safe. But even then, beneath Noah's calm expression, the proposal had carried a weight she didn't see. It wasn't just a promise, it was the beginning of a performance he needed her to maintain. As the wedding approached, Noah's need for control became sharper. He didn't voice it directly. He didn't have to. Every expectation was woven into the way he spoke, the way he corrected her gently, the way he molded her into a reflection of the life he wanted people to see. Ava mistook it for nerves, for pressure, for the heaviness that sometimes comes with planning a future. But Noah wasn't worried about the marriage. He was worried about the image. The pressure intensified the moment a passing comment reached him. A whisper from the wrong person at the wrong time. It came after a Saturday service, as guests lingered in the lobby. A distant acquaintance, someone Noah barely knew, mentioned that Ava had changed a lot over the years. The remark wasn't accusatory. It wasn't even meant to hint at anything dark. But in Noah's carefully curated world, the words dug under his skin like a splinter. On the drive home, he kept hearing them. Changed a lot. Changed from what? Changed how? Changed why? Instead of asking her directly, Noah did what he always did. He searched for confirmation without giving her a chance to explain. He went through her social media again, scrolling farther back than before. He examined every photo, every old comment, every friend she had once tagged. He zoomed into group pictures, squinting as if the pixels could reveal something she had hidden. When that wasn't enough, he checked online databases, typing her name into sites that promised full background history. He didn't find anything unusual, but that only made his unease worse. In Noah's mind, the absence of evidence wasn't proof of innocence. It was proof that she had covered something up. A few days later, he brought up the comment, his voice controlled and quiet. "Were you ever different than you are now?" Ava's heart raced. She wasn't lying when she said she had changed. She truly had. But she offered him the safest version of the truth, avoiding the chapter she had buried long ago. Her hands trembled as she spoke, terrified he would see through her fear. Noah nodded slowly, kissing her forehead afterward, telling her he trusted her. But the reassurance didn't take root. In Noah's mind, her hesitation confirmed everything he feared. From that moment on, paranoia replaced trust. He started paying attention in ways that made Ava feel watched without understanding why. He asked subtle questions about her past friendships. He analyzed the tone in her voice when she mentioned old classmates. He scrutinized every pause, every shift in her expression. Each time she laughed off a memory or avoided a detail, Noah felt something twist uncomfortably inside him. Meanwhile, the wedding grew closer, and pressure from his family mounted. His father lectured him about leading a spotless home. His mother reminded him that God blesses the pure-hearted. Friends teased him about marrying the perfect girl. Noah soaked in every comment, every expectation, every standard. Instead of feeling proud, he felt exposed, as if everyone was watching him stand on a pedestal that could crack beneath the smallest flaw. And because he had built his entire identity on the approval of others, the idea that Ava might not be the flawless bride he presented to the world became unbearable. August 20th, 2019. One small remark from his mother, "I'm grateful you chose a woman with a clean foundation," lodged itself in Noah's chest like a hook. He carried it for days, feeling it tug at him each time he looked at Ava. He replayed the acquaintance's comment. He replayed her hesitation. He replayed every moment she had avoided talking about her early life. Noah didn't want truth. He wanted validation, and he wanted Ava to fit the mold he had promised his parents, his church, and himself. As the final week before the wedding approached, Noah became colder, quieter, more watchful. He wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger requires a sense of betrayal. Noah wasn't sure what Ava had done, but he was certain she was hiding something. And certainty, in his world, always demanded action. Ava sensed the shift but blamed it on stress. She told herself every couple experiences tension before their big day. She tried harder, gentler, softer, hoping her kindness would settle whatever storm she didn't know she'd caused. But storms don't calm when truth is buried. They build. And in Noah Carter's mind, the pressure wasn't just building. It was becoming personal. The reception was winding down when Noah Carter felt his world split in two. August 24th, 2019, 9:12 p.m., beneath glowing barn lights and soft country music, Ava Simmons laughed with her bridesmaids, her white dress shimmering as she twirled. She looked weightless, radiant, the kind of bride people whispered prayers of gratitude for. And that was exactly when Noah's phone buzzed in his pocket. He stepped back from the dance floor as if answering a private call, but what waited on the screen wasn't a message of congratulations. It was an image sent from an unknown number. No caption, no context. Just a grainy still frame from a world Ava prayed would never surface again. Neon lights, a crowded club, and a younger version of herself frozen mid-step on a stage meant for survival, not identity. For several seconds, Noah didn't move. His hands tightened around the phone. His throat closed. His heartbeat thudded so loudly he couldn't hear the music anymore. The image didn't just hurt him, it humiliated him. It mocked everything he presented to the world, everything his parents celebrated, everything his church expected. Then the phone buzzed again, a video clip. The truth he demanded, without ever offering her safety to reveal it. Noah didn't react outwardly. He didn't shout or storm away. Instead, a strange quiet washed over him. A calm so cold it felt like another person slipped into his skin. He slipped the phone into his pocket and returned to the reception with a face smooth enough to fool everyone. But inside, Noah had already begun planning. Nothing Ava said from that point forward mattered. Not the way she squeezed his hand during the send-off. Not the soft kiss she pressed to his cheek in the car. Not the hopeful way she whispered, "I can't believe we're finally married." She had no idea she was speaking to a man who was now replaying every comment, every vow, every moment he believed she robbed him of. A man who believed he had been tricked into loving someone unworthy of his name. When they entered the bridal suite, Ava lit candles and set her bouquet on the dresser, still glowing with the innocence he no longer believed existed. Noah watched her move around the room, his silence stretching into something suffocating. "Noah, what's wrong?" she finally asked. He didn't answer. He simply lifted his phone, pressed play, and let the evidence speak for him. Ava crumpled onto the edge of the bed, whispering apologies through sobs, explaining the desperation. The bills, the loneliness, the things she did because she had no help and no home. She begged him to understand she wasn't that girl anymore. She begged him to see her, not her past. Noah listened without listening. Every word she said only cemented the decision forming in his mind. Her explanations didn't soften him, they hardened him. They turned humiliation into strategy. That was the moment the plan truly rooted itself. If Ava's past threatened to stain him, she could not remain part of his future. He needed a solution that protected his image, evoked sympathy, and erased the problem in a single night. And he found it. The bridge. The dark, quiet overpass they had driven by hundreds of times, lonely enough to swallow whatever truth entered it. He stood from the bed with an eerily steady expression. "I need air," he said. Ava rushed after him, terrified he was leaving. She didn't know she was walking into the final chapter of her life. The car ride was silent, but not frantic. It was purposeful, calculated, every turn precise, every mile a step deeper into Noah's plan. Ava kept reaching for his hand. He kept his eyes on the road. By the time they reached the cliffside overpass, Noah's mind was settled. The river below looked like a dark sheet of glass, reflecting the moon with a stillness that made the night feel staged. Ava stepped out slowly, shaking, barefoot in her gown. "Noah, please talk to me," she whispered. He walked ahead of her with such controlled purpose that Ava didn't realize this wasn't a man cooling off from anger. This was a man choreographing a narrative. He positioned himself near the guardrail, as if studying the drop. Ava cried harder, stepping beside him, trying to pull him back toward her. "Noah, look at me," she pleaded. "I am not that girl anymore. Please, please don't walk away." He finally looked at her. And in that brief stare, Ava saw something she couldn't name. Not rage, not heartbreak. Something colder, something resolved. This wasn't a man in emotional collapse. This was a man who had made a decision. He spoke softly, almost gently, as if calming a frightened animal. "You should have told me," he murmured. "You should have let me decide." Ava sobbed. "I was ashamed. I thought you'd leave me." Then Noah whispered the words that sealed everything. "You were right." He stepped closer, too close, placing himself between her and the guardrail, positioning her exactly where he wanted her to be. Ava didn't understand until the moment his hands touched her arms. By then, it was too late. The push wasn't wild or impulsive. It was controlled, measured, executed with the precision of someone who had rehearsed it in his mind for the last hour. Ava's scream tore into the night. Then the splash, then silence. Noah stood perfectly still, breathing in the darkness, as if it finally gave him back control of the identity he worshipped. In less than 12 hours of marriage, Noah Carter had decided that preserving his image was worth more than preserving his wife. And the river below accepted the lie he planned to tell. August 26, 2019, 4:52 a.m. Noah Carter's voice shook as he spoke into the phone, pacing beside his car on the dark stretch of Riverside Bridge. Behind him, the river whispered against the rocks, indifferent to the life it had just swallowed. My wife slipped," he gasped, breath hitching. We came out here after the reception. She stepped too close. I tried to grab her. I tried." Dispatch told him to stay where he was. Help was on the way. Noah ended the call, exhaling shakily, then looked down at his hands. Steady, unscarred, not a trace of mud or river water anywhere. He wiped his face anyway, forcing tears into place. If anyone questioned why he wasn't wet, why he wasn't covered in dirt, why he hadn't climbed down after her. He already had the answers rehearsed. Shock, darkness, panic. He froze. He didn't know what to do. The phone fell. He lost time. His entire alibi crafted itself the same moment her body hit the water. 5:23 a.m. The first patrol car pulled up with lights flashing through the dim morning haze. Noah rushed forward immediately, voice cracking as he waved the officer down. "She slipped right there," he cried, pointing at the railing. "I couldn't see anything. It was too dark. I kept calling her name. She didn't answer." The officer took in Noah's spotless shirt, his dry shoes, the lack of scratches on his arms. He didn't comment. He simply radioed for additional units. And then, almost as if the river itself knew what story was being told above it, a fisherman downstream spotted the torn lace drifting near the rocks. More officers responded. More lights, more tension settling over the water. The fisherman guided them to the dress fragment, voice trembling as he described what he saw. Noah overheard him, breaking into sobs so sudden and so neatly timed that Detective Marla Jensen took a long, quiet look at him before glancing back at the dress. Something wasn't sinking. 6:01 a.m. Detective Jensen approached Noah gently. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry for what you're going through. I just need you to walk me through this one more time." Slowly. Noah inhaled shakily, nodding. We left the reception around midnight," he whispered. "She wanted air. We drove here." She leaned over the railing, trying to see the reflection of her dress in the water. "She slipped. It happened so fast. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I tried calling for her. Then I called 911. Every sentence came polished. Every detail landed exactly where a grieving husband should. But Jensen saw a problem he didn't expect. His story sounded memorized, not lived. Still, she didn't challenge him. Not yet. The Carters were a respected family. Pastor Gregory Carter's presence hovered over the scene like a shield. People handled tragedy gently when good families were involved. Noah leaned into every inch of that goodwill. 6:47 a.m. As crime scene techs focused on the embankment, Deputy Alvarez found a phone wedged between stones downstream. He held it up carefully. "Phone found. Looks like it belongs to..." He paused. "Noah Carter." Officers exchanged glances. Jensen walked it over to him. "Is this yours?" Noah blinked rapidly. "I dropped it when she fell. That's why I couldn't call right away. I lost it." But dispatch logs told a different story. Noah didn't call 911 until nearly an hour after Ava vanished. Jensen didn't reveal that yet. She simply noted the inconsistency silently. 9:15 a.m. Divers entered the river. The current tugged gently at their wetsuits as they disappeared beneath the surface. Officers watched the coordinates, radios buzzing lightly. Noah sat on the guardrail, face buried in his hands, shaking just enough to be believable, but not enough to smear the perfect image he had constructed. His tears came precisely when eyes were on him. His silence deepened when attention drifted. His grief bent itself into performance. And everyone, from curious onlookers to responding officers, felt the tension between what Noah said and what the river seemed to hold. 11:03 a.m. The radio crackled. Subject located. Detective Jensen closed her eyes briefly. When the divers surfaced with Ava's body, wrapped carefully in canvas, the truth appeared in the fractures they described quietly. Angles that didn't match a slip, distances that didn't match a simple misstep, force that didn't belong to gravity alone. Jensen turned toward Noah. He wasn't watching the river, he wasn't reaching out, he wasn't crying anymore. He was still, frozen in a calm, too controlled, too centered for the moment they announced his wife was dead. And that stillness told Jensen something unmistakable. Noah Carter wasn't grieving a tragedy. He was managing a lie. August 27, 2019, 9:20 a.m. Detective Marla Jensen sat inside the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, the entire case board spread across the wall like a fractured mirror reflecting two lives. Ava's truth and Noah's performance. The grief-stricken groom he presented to the world no longer aligned with the evidence in front of her. Every new piece pointed toward a man who wasn't shattered, just exposed. The first blow came from the phone records. Noah insisted he didn't see the anonymous message until after the wedding reception, that he and Ava were already back at the suite when the video came through. But the timestamp proved otherwise. The message, the grainy clip, the old flyer, arrived during the reception, not after. And worse, Phone forensics revealed he unlocked his device several times in the minutes following the message. Each time the screen lit up long enough to show the notification preview. There was no scenario where he missed it. He saw it. He reacted, and within hours, Ava was dead. Then came the second crack, the 911 call timeline. Noah's story depended on panic, a frantic husband scrambling in the dark, overwhelmed, disoriented. But GPS logs showed he drove away from the bridge before calling for help. Not frantically, not erratically, just calm, purposeful. Exactly the speed of a man piecing together the version of events he intended everyone else to believe. For nearly 50 minutes, he didn't call anyone. No neighbors, no police, no hotel staff. And when dispatch finally received his call, his voice hitched, trembled, broke, too perfectly, Jensen thought, as if he'd practiced on the drive back. The third fracture came from surveillance footage at a nearby gas station. Security cameras captured Noah's sedan pulling into the lot at 1:27 a.m., headlights off. For 7 minutes, he sat there unmoving, staring at the steering wheel. He didn't run inside. He didn't flag anyone. He didn't look like a man whose bride had just vanished beneath a bridge. He looked like someone working through a script. Jensen watched the footage twice. The body language said everything the words didn't. No panic. No confusion. Just calculation. Meanwhile, forensic teams examined Ava's injuries. The results were impossible to mistake. Her fractured ribs, the angle of impact, the bruising along her back, all of it aligned with a forceful push, not a misstep. Even the distance she drifted suggested momentum, not the gentle slide Noah described. A slip might have meant broken hands, scraped knees, an attempt to stop the fall. Ava had none. Someone sent her over, the forensic analyst said plainly. Someone she trusted. And then came what Jensen privately called the key, the anonymous texter. A former acquaintance from Ava's past, someone who recognized her through a mutual friend's social media post. He admitted he sent the video and flyer out of spite, thinking Noah should know the kind of woman he married. But the most revealing detail wasn't his motivation. It was the exact timestamp he sent it. 11:18 p.m., minutes before the reception ended. Hours before Ava died. When detectives asked if the texter had sent additional messages or had any contact with Noah, he shook his head. One message. That's it. Whatever happened after, that ain't on me. Jensen couldn't help but notice the weight in his voice, as if he suddenly understood the chain reaction he set in motion. But the investigation wasn't about his guilt. It was about Noah's choices in the hours afterward. Choices that revealed more about his character than the anonymous message ever could. His search history showed a pattern stretching back years. Articles about restoring purity in marriage, chat threads debating whether a man should stay with a woman who hid her past, sermon clips he saved about moral cleanliness. He wasn't just uncomfortable with sexual history. He was obsessed with it. It controlled him. It defined the way he viewed women. It shaped every expectation he placed on the woman he married. The deeper detectives dug, the more the image Noah crafted. The polished Christian golden boy, the humble son raised under scripture and strict expectations, began to crumble. Friends from college described him as charming until criticized, gentle until embarrassed, spiritual until challenged. In every story, the moment Noah felt his image was threatened, he withdrew into a coldness that didn't fit the sweet facade. One friend said it best, Noah didn't date women, he curated them. By the afternoon briefing, the case board no longer showed a tragedy, it showed a pattern. A man whose fear of humiliation outweighed his capacity for love, whose childhood conditioning around reputation had calcified into something dark, menacing, and absolute. Jensen stood before the board, the timeline now sharper, the motive clearer. He didn't break because Ava lied. He broke because her past dared to challenge the image he worshipped more than marriage itself. Before we turn the page, let me ask you something. How dangerous does pride become when a person believes reputation is worth more than the life beside them? If you've been following this case closely, share your thoughts below. Like, comment, and subscribe to Crime Deck so we can keep uncovering stories like this. Stories that remind us how thin the line can be between devotion and destruction. The courthouse smelled of old wood and nervous breath. The kind of place where truth always feels heavier than the walls can hold. People lined up outside long before the doors opened. Neighbors, church members, reporters, classmates, strangers who had followed Ava's story from the day her dress was pulled from the river. The town that once praised Noah Carter as the pastor's golden son now gathered to watch him answer for the life he destroyed. When Noah entered shackled at the wrists, the room shifted. He no longer carried the polished glow he once wore like armor. His face was thinner, his hair unkempt, his eyes darkened from sleepless nights in a holding cell. The mask he had perfected since childhood, the humble smile, the soft-spoken charm, no longer held. What remained was a man who finally looked like the version detectives met beneath the bridge, calculated, controlled, hollow. On the opposite side, Ava's people filled the benches, her college friends, her old roommates, her coworkers who remembered her shy laughter. Her sister, Elena, sitting at the center with her hands clasped tightly together, staring at the table where Ava should have been. The quiet hum of whispered prayers filled the room, but none were for Noah. 9:41 a.m., opening arguments. The prosecution began with a timeline. Clean, precise, unforgiving. They showed the jury Noah's phone logs, GPS data, and the silent footage from the gas station where he sat in his car, rehearsing his lie. They demonstrated how the message from the anonymous texter arrived during the reception, not after, and how Noah unlocked his phone repeatedly, contradicting every word he'd later tell officers. The jury watched the evidence unfold like chapters in a story they wished wasn't true. Then came the reenactment. A forensic analyst approached the stand, detailing Ava's injuries with clinical clarity. Fractures that required outward force, bruising consistent with a push, not a slip, and the trajectory that placed her body far beyond where gravity alone could carry her. Each detail sliced deeper through the illusion Noah tried to maintain. The courtroom grew still. Too still. Ava's sister bowed her head, tears sliding silently down her cheeks as the analyst demonstrated how Ava hit the water. How she died in desperate confusion, still believing the man who pushed her was the man who loved her. The jury watched without blinking. 1:18 p.m. The video. The anonymous clip played next. The projector hummed softly as Ava's younger self appeared on the screen. Frightened, exhausted, dancing beneath neon lights to survive a life that had abandoned her long before she could fight back. It was not a video meant for humiliation. It was a video meant for survival. The courtroom saw it, the profiler saw it, even the judge saw it. Everyone except Noah. He didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He didn't break. He stared at the screen with the same cold calculation he used when he stood on that bridge, choosing pride over Ava's life. The prosecutor let the silence sit heavy before turning back to the jury. "This," she said, "is not what killed Ava. Her past didn't kill her. His response to it did." And the room agreed. 2:47 p.m. The defense Noah's attorneys tried to thread a different story, one of panic, of emotional shock, of a groom overwhelmed by the confrontation he didn't expect. They described Noah as fragile, broken, incapable of rational thought. But the evidence devoured every excuse. Panic doesn't produce 46 minutes of silence, a calm drive to a gas station, a dry shirt, unscuffed shoes, a story the exact same way, word for word, every time roofing. The jury watched Noah the entire time. He never looked fragile, he looked exposed. As his attorney spoke, Noah sat stiffly, jaw clenched, fingers twitching. He wasn't fighting for innocence, he was fighting for image, a battle he'd already lost. 4:12 p.m., the verdict. When the foreperson rose, the courtroom froze. On the charge of murder, a single breath hung in the air. "We find the defendant guilty." Elena's cry broke the silence first, a single, sharp sob that shattered into trembling breaths. A sound born from two losses, the sister she adored and the future Ava never got to claim. Noah didn't cry, didn't gasp, didn't beg. He simply blinked, as if the word guilty was too small to hold the weight of what he'd done. The judge sentenced him to life in prison. No parole, no second chances, no more polished masks to hide behind. The pastors who once praised him lowered their heads. His mother wept softly. His father stared straight ahead, jaw tight, faith cracked in half. And Noah Carter was led away. Not as a groom, not as a victim, not as a golden son, but as the man who killed the woman he vowed to cherish. In the months that followed, the town didn't forget Ava. They honored her. Her friends created Ava's Lift, a foundation for women healing from shame, trauma, and secrets that never should have carried judgment. Her college campus held a candlelight vigil each year. Her story spread far beyond the river. A reminder that secrets don't kill relationships. Pride does. Control does. Image does. Ava didn't die because of her past. She died because Noah believed her past was bigger than both of their futures. And now her truth lives louder than the lie he tried to bury her under. Ava Simmons never wanted to be remembered for the secrets she carried. She wanted to be remembered for the life she was building. The kindness she gave freely, the softness she fought to protect, the quiet strength she earned the hard way. But in the end, her legacy grew louder than the past she feared. It became a mirror held up to a truth most people don't want to face. It's not someone's history that destroys them. It's the person who decides that history makes them unworthy. Noah tried to write the final chapter of her life with one violent act, one push, one lie, one rehearsed story he thought would shield him from accountability. But the truth has a way of finding air. And when it finally rose to the surface, it carried Ava's name with a dignity Noah never deserved to tarnish. Her story reminds us that some of the most dangerous people aren't the ones who erupt suddenly, but the ones who believe their reputation is more valuable than your life. The ones who smile in photos, shake hands in church, and hide rot beneath a polished surface. The ones who love you only as long as you fit their image, and crumble the moment you don't. If you take anything from Ava's story, let it be this: secrets don't kill. Shame doesn't kill. Past mistakes don't kill. But silence. Silence around control, around manipulation, around the slow tightening of someone else's expectations. That silence can become a grave. Before you go, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story moved you, if it shook you, if it made you think twice about the masks people wear, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Deck. Like, comment, and share Ava's story so more people understand the warning she never got to give. Because stories like this, they don't just inform us, they protect us.